Hello and welcome to Friday with the Chakontas. I am Mr. Chakonta,
And I'm Mrs. Chakonta.
and welcome back to our FWT Reacts.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much for following us on um, YouTube, subscribing on YouTube, following us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. We really appreciate you. And if you're new, I hope you like or what you listen to today. And if you do, don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah. So what do you have for us today?
Ooh. So I've got something a little bit different. So it goes like this. I am 45 years old and I am currently not working at the moment. I was blessed with a beautiful wife and 2 children. When I met my wife for the first time, she had a 1-year-old boy. She told me that the father of the boy disappeared after she gave birth. So I married her and raised the boy like he was my biological son, and I took him to school. The boy was very brilliant at school, so he finished school with flying colors, went to university, and immediately started working after graduating. But then later he started looking for his biological father and found him. Then he decided to renovate his biological father's house and also bought him a car while I had nothing. Now the boy has bought a second car for himself, and the number plate written is his biological father's surname. Please help me. How can I make him see that I am hurting?
I don't know. What?
What do you mean you don't know?
This conversation can go in 2 ways. It's more on the side of the university. Did he pay for it?
I think so, because he says I took him to school. Let's just assume he did.
Is it university or just in general school?
Well, it just says school, but let's assume he paid for his university.
Okay, there can be ways.
Or he got a loan.
There can be ways of where I feel like in the certain situations of where somebody's paying for your schooling, and they're letting you know I'm paying for your schooling and it's not my responsibility. And like there are like some either fathers or even relatives or uncles, especially like let's say a child who's lost their parents, and they've taken on now the responsibility of taking care of their children. They're really emphasizing that this is not my responsibility, and no, they understand it's their responsibility, but they're angry about it. And there you can see the treatment between their own children as well as and difference from the child who's not theirs. And they're emphasizing and saying you're a burden, and you're feeling that burden each and every time. And it's like every time you're coming with a sense of you always have to be grateful. You always have to be grateful. And I can see that in our stages of just our culture. People do that. But there are also some other sides of where I've also experienced it on my like some family sides where like parents will actually do that, and they will love their the child who's not theirs the same way that they're loving on their own children.
Yeah.
Take them to the same schools, treat them the same way, and there's just a level of coldness from the other child, who I don't know why they feel like they're not loved. They're always searching for something, which I don't fully understand. And don't you feel loved? Don't you feel you're getting the same privileges? Do you see any unfairness? And why are you behaving that part of way and that in that way? And I feel like that I don't fully comprehend. And I think that maybe sometimes there's maybe a psychological thing that we don't understand of where children, regardless of where they're coming from, they always want that bond from their biological parents.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like sometimes where like even with adoption, it can be very hard, especially when a parent feels like I've shown you the love that you needed, but why are you searching for something else? And I think maybe people who are going to adopt don't fully understand that this is also part of what the adoption process is, the complication. Is that you're going to love somebody, but that love won't be fully and won't be enough. And only God can feel that love for that person, where they can find full satisfaction and love that is beyond anything. Even when they go to their father, they will feel like maybe I'm close to them, but maybe, and I would do all these things to buy them a car, and maybe I can buy that love that made them run away from me, and feeling like I'm overcompensating for your love that you did not give to me. And I'm also trying to show you that you rejecting me, there was no need for you to reject me. And through that, you're also hurting somebody who's loved you in that sense of where they gave their all, but you are chasing for somebody else.
Yeah.
It's like, let's say, for example, let me give you an example. I'm married to you, but then I had an ex who I really liked so much. You're giving me everything that you're giving me to like show that you love me. But I'm still chasing that person. I want that person to validate
something in you.
Validate something in me.
Yeah.
And I'm chasing for that. It's like, let's say, for example, like I always give the issue about 20% and 80% and 20%. Maybe that 20%, that person is, that child is chasing so much to the point of where they're forgetting that 80%, you're hurting the 80%. And I think with certain situations, there has to be a level of God's grace for that they can understand how they can navigate this situation, because it's a really tough thing. Yeah, I would like to hear your point. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think there's so many angles to this, isn't it? And it's interesting. You started on one side, what could be on one side of the story where, the different ways in which this young man could have been brought up, whether it could have been a very loving home or a very difficult upbringing, which could have resulted in him behaving this way. Or alternatively, let's just say he was brought up in a loving home, and him and his stepfather were in a really good relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking now looking back at the stepfather's experience, because he's now looking and saying, I'm not working. I'm 45, which is quite nice and young. He's 45, but he's not working, and he can see that his son is working, and his son is doing well for himself financially, to the point where he's like, wow, it suggests that, I don't know whether, the thing is, we don't have the story. Does the son help out at all? Or from the way the story is written, it's like the son does not help out in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
But it could also be that the son does actually give him some money, but maybe he doesn't feel like it's enough. Maybe he feels like his son can give him more, considering that he's giving him money once a month, or let's say £200 or whatever it is, or
maybe
5,000 kwacha.
Or maybe it's just comparing and saying,
I should get more.
Yeah, but
or I should
evaluating what you're giving me, and you're giving your father a car.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the same. So I wish, I wish you were giving me more. Or maybe it's a situation where he feels like he should get even more than the father, the biological father.
Or he should be rewarded for what
he did. Yeah, that's true. I think, but whatever it is, whatever is happening is hurting him. And I think it's really important to kind of analyze where that hurt is coming from. And I think only him can fully understand, because he will know the full context better than we do. But either way, even if it wasn't, but it sounds like he really gave this boy the best and treated him like his own child. And I think it's important to acknowledge that does hurt when you see that your child is playing favorites, and also to the point, and especially to a man or a woman who was not present. And we do know that this does occur, where men and women come at the end or in the middle of their child's life, and they haven't seen the other part or have not taken part in it. And then it's almost like and then they end up being the one to, what we can say, reaping the rewards of the hard work. I think it is a tough one, and I can understand why he would be hurt.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's in a tough financial situation. Maybe I don't know if it's pride or he doesn't want to ask his son, because you can always ask, I'm in a tough situation, can you help me out financially? But I do think a lot also should be said to us children and how we treat our parents as well.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, I do feel like we should acknowledge that. I mean, if you acknowledge, because it suggests, I'm using this story very plainly without going into detail. It suggests that this man was present. This man was the father figure in this home, and the home functioned well. But because of that void that's been missing, another person, and you've found that void, and you don't really know whether does that. I mean, to be honest, one thing that did pop into my mind was, is his father really genuine? Because sometimes you can get parents who are like, oh wow, my child is doing well, and I get to reap the benefits of it, and could be emotionally abusing him financially. Like, we've watched, there was that movie, what movie was it? I don't know if it was a movie or a series. Basically, the father needed a kidney and he was never present. I don't know what movie I was watching. He was never present, and then eventually, I think when his mum died, the father reached out to him, and he took him fish. He literally like groomed him per se, or really played into that father role, and they went fishing, they did things together, and then at the end we've realized that actually he just wanted a kidney from him.
That's evil.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. Really bad. So you don't know. Some people can be very manipulative, and some people can be really evil.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I am going all over the place because I'm just.
But what's the dynamics of the mother says that the father left, right?
Yes.
And he never had contact with the child.
Yeah, she said the father disappeared.
But again, maybe
but we don't really know the full story.
Maybe that's also another situation maybe we can look into, because I'm saying like the mother's story is one side of the story. And maybe this boy goes and hears the other side of the story. And I think that's another situation where like, okay, yeah, maybe you guys didn't work out, but why weren't you present? And he's like, oh, your mother basically told me not to be here. And yeah, I just found that, okay, let me give this a try.
Yeah.
In the sense of, I want to have a relationship separate from just for myself, and figure it out for myself. If you're not a genuine guy, I'll acknowledge that regardless if you're not there, you've got my biological father. And I have to honor you in that certain way. But yeah, I think maybe maybe he's overcompensating and trying to say, okay, he's my biological, so I have to do whatever I have to do to earn his love.
But I think, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And I also go back to the sense of, as children, like we do have a role to play, especially in this current climate where we do have blended families, and we have stepfathers and stepmothers. And I think there is something to be said if there's a man who stood up and looked after you when you were young and played the father figure, and now you've grown up and you find that you have two fathers. I think it is also quite good to be very emotionally aware of how your actions might be making one feel.
Yeah.
How is it that, yes, if you buy a car for one father and then you don't buy a car for the other father, how would they feel? It's a bit similar to, like, especially if your parents are not together, where you buy a car for your mom and then you don't buy a car for your dad if they've both been equally present, or even if they haven't, there's always that element of jealousy. And I think this man might be experiencing feelings of jealousy. And these can run in different ways, can run in regret and resentment. This can lead to a conflict between him and his wife. And also this can lead to a problem with the relationship with his son, because they might actually have a good relationship. So I think this jealousy or these feelings, they need to be dealt with before they become they become even deeper and cause problems in the different relationships he has. And I think one of the ways that he can, because I think he's saying, how do I let him know that I'm hurting? And I think one way is also to speak to his wife. I think I don't know. I feel like in such a situation like this, I would come to you and talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you'd be able to give me words of wisdom and you'd help me. And that maybe it might be a situation where just hearing you say, you know what, you did a good job. You did really well. You tried your best. And just forget about it. I think that might sometimes be enough for me to forget about it. I think knowing that your spouse is with you and understands why you're feeling those emotions and validates them with you.
Yeah.
And they give you some words of wisdom. You can tackle it together without feeling that it's just you and maybe you're suffering by yourself and your wife doesn't even know that you feel these things.
Yeah.
And the thing is, she might do, especially if he's just doing them for his father and not even doing them for your house. And I'm assuming,
or his mother.
Yeah, his mother.
Yeah.
So,
but maybe it can be on the side of where he's upset with the mother.
Yeah. But at least he's got somebody, you know what? It's in this world when you're going through stuff and you've got somebody who you can be like, yeah, can you imagine just what he's doing? Yeah. Like, it does help. Sharing the burden helps.
Like what?
So if, let's say, he's not doing that to his mother, I'm sure his mum is upset as well and angry.
No,
so if they're both talking about it, then that could also help.
With who? With husband?
Yeah, so I'm saying the man, if he goes and talks to his wife about the issue that he's experiencing, and if she's sharing the same feelings, then perhaps they can, moan about it together and help each other to come to a solution.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's sad. It is really sad when I know that a lot of people do say children, it's not your responsibility to be feeding your parents and all of that, but I don't know. Some people have different views on that, but I don't know. I mean, if my parents are not working and I'm working, I don't see why it's not a good idea for me to help them.
Yeah.
So I think different people have different ways of dealing with things. Yeah. But then again, if he's 45 and he's just like, I'm gonna sit at home, I don't want to work, so that my children can it's now that my children's turn to work for me and to give me money, then it's a different story. He's still young, that he can he's still young, and depending on the reasons of why he's not working, he's still capable of working. It's different if we're talking about a 45-year-old father and an 80-year-old father. No?
I agree with you on a certain point, but I think maybe you're overemphasizing on the side of, let's say, for example, regardless, as a child, I wouldn't go and tell my child I just don't want to work. But let's say, for example, as a child, and just as courtesy, if you've got something, help me out, because I've helped you out. That's what I think.
No, I agree with that. But I'm saying, if he's just there like, oh yeah, my child is rich, so I'm just gonna sit here and do nothing. Let's say if you were
my child, and basically I'm saying, let's say, for example, you're my child, and
you're not working.
No, I decided to stop working.
Why?
Because a child who's like if I get a superstar, a football player, you get so much money.
I think that's different. I don't know if I'm a football. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. Because I'm putting myself in like a normal job situation.
Yeah.
I'm not putting myself in like a rich, ridiculously rich situation. Yeah. I don't know how the rich people do it, because it must be tough. Because everybody else feels like, oh, I can stop working now. Because I feel like I'll have that attitude. Like if I had a son who's like famous and makes millions and makes 250,000, I'm like, why am I killing myself? My son makes money.
Yeah.
I feel like
if it's something
I might be a mother like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then you're like, there's a side of way, like you're saying, I can work, but then you're like, okay, but I'm not gonna. I'm tired. I'm feeling whatever, and.
But you don't just make that decision yourself. I think it's best to go and have the conversation with the person that you're expecting to fund you.
That's true. That's true. But I also think that maybe there's also just another angle of where, like, let's say, for example, if your mother was working 3 jobs to just put you through school, and then now you've made it.
Yeah.
Then you're basically just going to say, no, you continue working those three jobs.
You'll be like, no, you don't need 3 jobs. You just need 1 job.
Yeah, or something like that. And then, like, let's say this is like where.
But you've literally made it and you make a lot of money.
Yeah, it brings also animosity in the sense of like, now he goes and marries this girl or something like that. And this girl is even like so controlling. And maybe just because she's got his child, and then you get things like that.
I
And I think
being
that
rich
it becomes
is difficult in this life.
yeah, it becomes becomes very, you become very like you're annoyed and you're saying, so why did I suffer all this? And you start to justify why you did what you did,
it's
even
true.
though
And you
as a
start to
parent,
think about, it's true. It's
that's your job.
role.
Yeah.
You start to wonder. And I think that's where this man is going. He's now wondering and thinking, I've done all of this for you, but you're buying yourself a second car. I can't even afford, let's say, some bread because I'm not working.
Yeah.
But yet you have enough money to buy yourself a second car. But then again, it is his money, and you can't be banking and budgeting your life on other people's money.
No, but I just out of courtesy, I think.
Yeah, but we don't know. He might be. That's the thing. I agree with you, but he might be. He might just not be helping as to the extent that he wants him to help, or he's comparing.
No, but my question
is the level of help that he's receiving with his real.
But it's also
with his biological father.
It's another angle of where, like, I'm just like, okay, I understand that there's a level of where I can feel jealousy.
Yeah, definitely.
In the sense, I know it's not right, but I think it's jealousy in the sense of saying that, look, I did all these things. This guy has just come. Why does he get the best of you?
Yeah. Yeah. Life is unfair sometimes.
I got the worst of you. I got changing your diapers. I got taking you to school. I got going to your games. I got going to your graduation, finding ways of how to do that. And now he gets the best of you when you are thriving.
Yeah.
And that's hurtful.
Yeah, that's painful.
And I think even just like, let's say, for example, even in single parent households, let's say if just that woman was just raising those children.
Yes,
and when
and
they
then
grow up, the father shows up. And I feel like we can understand, it hurts. Because they're just like, why are you just showing up now? And I think there's also another aspect of maybe like African parents, they feel they're entitled. I'm your father. And they feel like fathering is just on the side of, because I'm your biological, I gave you life. I'm entitled to whatever you have, which I think is also wrong. Fathering is different from somebody. It's not, you just don't father just because you somebody who, how can I explain it?
Fathering is not just but it's not just I know
through biologically.
I know.
Biological means it's not just because
it's not just because of the DNA.
Your DNA. It's not just because of somebody's DNA that fathering means you put in the work. And I think maybe that's also another thing maybe even young people should not understand. Even though this person wasn't there, this person was actually my father. And there's a blessing in the sense of that man loved me enough even though I wasn't his. And I think it also talks to the aspect of just the biblical narrative we see in the sense of us being adopted into God's family. And there's a beauty in the sense of, I did not love God, but he chose me.
Yeah.
He died for me. And he loved me like his own. I'm now a co-heir with Christ. You love that situation of understanding that beauty in saying that this is not an obligation. This is actually a choice. And I think even a choice is even better than an obligation. That's what I think personally. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing to love you. But I feel like I don't know why we're always chasing for the obligation. And I think that's where this is another, maybe there's another, do you think there's a psychological aspect of this maybe we haven't talked about?
What do you mean?
Of a child.
Yeah, definitely. I think because this is a scenario that we see a lot, and you can't really fathom, or you can't really fully put like 1 + 1 to make it make sense, but we see it a lot where, and you said it at the beginning, you said there's just this sense of belonging or love that is innate, that you're born with for your parents, for your mother and your father. It's like you can have a mother who is whatever, or a father who's whatever, but that love that you have for them is very different, or the level of your ability to forgive them, to reconcile. We even see it with families. Generally, it's easier sometimes to forgive your siblings, forgive your brothers and sisters, compared to forgiving somebody, your neighbor next door. My neighbor she just looks at me this way and that's it. We don't talk anymore. But when it comes to your brother and sisters, you've argued about multiple things, but somehow you still find your way back.
Yeah.
So I think there is something about DNA, there is something about blood that bonds us that is beyond human understanding, or there's just something in there that God created when he was creating families, a mother, a father, siblings. There's a unity there. There's a family unity that is not, it can't be bought with money. It's not, there's just something there. So I think there is an element psychologically, you can call it psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, that's there, that drives the person. Because, even when children are adopted, you've even talked about that as well, where they want to find out who their biological father and mothers are. And they even have the question of why. I think some of it is just genuinely that element of being adopted, but there is a connection there that strives to trying to understand more. And it doesn't mean that they love you less. It doesn't mean they don't love you either. It's just there's something in the way that we are created that is bonded by blood.
And then, there's another one, like I saw a story like on Instagram, I don't know if it's Facebook, where like the stepfather was paying for the wedding. Have you heard that story? He was paying for the wedding, and like now when he got the guest list, the mother started now saying, "Oh, this is the guest list, half for the biological father and half for her for her side." Then he's like, where's my side? Then she's like, "Oh, but it's her biological father." And who's what first? I think the question was who's walking her down the aisle when he's raised her. And he's like, it's her biological father.
Wow.
And then on the aspect of now, they'll say splitting the guest list based on the two parents, the biological parents.
But I think people need to just
then they're like, why? What about me? So she's now, I think she was compensating and saying, your guest list is on my side. Then he's upset. He's like, no. And I think he basically said he's not gonna pay for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay for that wedding. Sorry. I'm sorry. I think the people sometimes take the biscuit.
And let your father pay for it.
Yeah, let him pay for it. He's walking down the aisle. Let him do the job. What's this? Yeah. Definitely. Oh, I would not pay for that wedding. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes, I think this is where I'm saying people sometimes are so in their feelings that you're not taking a step back to think, how are my actions going to make somebody feel? And this is what I'm talking about. This gentleman, does he think about how is it that him renovating the house? I'm not saying he shouldn't, but how is he renovating? How is it that the way he's treating his biological father, how is that different to how he might be treating the other two parents? And how is that going to make them feel? And what sort of environment or tension can that bring, or problems can that bring in the home? Yeah. So I think it's similar to that example you're telling me. Like when they were making these decisions, they didn't think, oh, how is he going to feel? They're just copying maybe how everybody does it. Like half of the side is the mom and half of the side is the father. And you're like, okay, but actually this is not the norm. Like we're coming from a blended family. Yeah. We have a stepfather in it. So how do we make it equal and fair and respectful? And so I'm just like, we do as children have a role to play. I mean, even you as the daughter, like, I mean, so you know that your stepfather is the one paying for your wedding, and yet you're there busy saying my dad is walking me down the aisle. I'm just like, that should also make you feel something. Or you can at least ask in case, he's expecting it. And especially if he's brought you up. I mean, that must have been a conversation that has ticked your brain for you to come up with that idea. Yeah. And I think, it does create a lot of tension. Yeah. But I think the question the gentleman asked was,
please help me. How can I make him see that I'm hurting?
Yes. How does he do that? Because we talked about him talking to his wife, but what else?
I think another way is also having honest conversations with the child, especially if they've got a good relationship.
Oh, you would recommend that?
Yeah, I would recommend that. Especially you've raised him, you've trained him, and you're basically saying that, look, this is how I feel about this. And I think maybe on this side, because a lot of the maybe African side, there's the other side of where I'm just telling you what to do. I think maybe it's also another side of maybe as your relationship is growing, be intentional that we can become friends. We can have these conversations. and we can come and say, okay, look, what you did was not nice. I know he's your father, but the way I'm translating this is like you're not appreciating how I stepped in and loved you unconditionally. I'm not expecting this, but you've seen that, look. And I think it's also maybe also being honest and saying, I'm not even asking for this situation, but you've seen that I'm struggling. I don't have a job now. I'm trying my best to whatever. I can't go to your mother and tell her that. You've seen how it's stressed you and your mother and I. And you doing these things, it basically hurts me in the sense of not showing that you actually saw how I loved you if you did that. But I think on the hurting side, I think I have to gauge it on why he wants to do that. Is he doing that because he wants to emphasize what I've done, I need to be repaid? Or what I've done is an act of love and I'm seeing rejection? Or on the side of where I'm just saying, look, let's just have a conversation of our feelings on this situation. I would rather also say, if you want, just communicate to me and say, I'm doing this thing because I want to have an aspect of a relationship with my father. Maybe I'm also saying, I also can also maybe talk to him and saying, it's also a warning on the side of where I'm saying like, okay, look, I've heard this thing about your father and I think you're doing too much. And maybe you're doing too much. Why are you doing too much? Do you think your father will love you more? And maybe I think this is where I think boys and men need to have those open channels for them to have real conversations. And I don't know where, maybe in our culture, we don't have that point of where God's dropped down for parents to become friends, especially on the male side. I don't know. Somebody can put in the comments and maybe advise us on this if they have that relationship, or whether they've seen their relationship with their parents change from just them being father and son now to being friends.
Yeah, I get you.
Anything you want to add there?
I agree with you, but I would personally really struggle with that. I think that would be a very hard conversation.
Yeah,
it's good. It needs to be hard, because otherwise you're just going to be brewing and putting layers upon layers, and one day you might snap and it's like, where is this coming from? So you're right, having those conversations. And you're right, actually, it might be that he's overcompensating, and actually as a father you might need to help him, and maybe he feels like, he's added up all the times maybe he's helped the stepfather and thought maybe it's time he helps the father. Or maybe the father is just saying, I need this, I didn't. You don't know, and you don't know the story. So I agree with you. I think having an open channel of discussion, and I think sometimes as a father being vulnerable to your children is quite difficult, I can imagine. And saying, I'm basically admitting that you're kind of jealous. I think that's quite hard. And how do you, and I think being open and saying, I don't know, part of this might be because of me being jealous, and that means that is not a godly quality, and I need to work on that and ask God to help me. But another part of me is being concerned for your well-being, and just making sure that you're not feeling that you need to overcompensate, or I don't know what's happening with the relationship that you guys are having. And I also think there needs to be a level of an acceptance from this stepfather of saying, you know what, this is the risk. This is one of the possible complications of entering in a marriage where you know that there is not complication, but I would say dynamics or difficult situations that you might have to face.
Blended families come with a lot
it comes with some things that you're going to have to face, and this is one of them. So taking ownership of that when I did take this role as saying I will be a stepfather to this child, that there was going to be a possibility that the father was going to show up, whatever reason it is that he wasn't there. Regardless, the fact that he was still there was a chance that he was going to show up, and there is a chance that your child might gravitate towards them, and and you don't know when that stage might be. It might be when they're still young, 2, 3, whatever, 15, 20, 30. You don't know at what point that will happen. And so I think it's about asking God to help you in this situation, to deal with to not be jealous, to deal with the feelings of jealousy and covetousness,
What?
Is it covert? Is it? Did I say it right?
Coveting, no, covetousness. As
Thank
in you're
you.
coveting what? What are you coveting though?
Like, because he's like, oh, he's got 2 cars, or he's
Okay.
renovated his house. I don't know fully how those feelings are, but there's a potential of that. Or jealous, like, I'm saying potential jealousy. I'm not saying it's fully jealousy, but potential jealousy. And asking God to kind of help you with those emotions, because you can be seeing these with God's help. You can be seeing these things and not experience jealousy not experiencing the desire to also want, and actually even coming out on the other side thinking, wow, I'm actually quite proud of what I've done. I'm quite proud of what God was able to help me to do for this young gentleman, that now he's come out on the other side as a young man, able to financially support himself as well as other people, and he's doing well in life. Because I'm sure you wouldn't want him to be on the other end struggling to find work and things like that. So I think with God's help, you are able to get to that stage where you can see certain things that are potential challenges, but you're living in peace and joy. And I think, so asking God for that, and asking God for wisdom in how to address it, and how to, the words to use during the conversation. So it doesn't become a situation where if you do address it with your son, he's not just taking from it, oh, you're just jealous or you don't care. Like, how do you address it? How do you, should, I think should is one we have spoken about, but how, what words do you use? Because these things are really sensitive matters. And you don't want this to be a situation which drives you apart, because it sounds like regardless of what's happening now, there must have been quite a good bond between you and him, and he is your son. He might not be biologically your child, but you still have that. And I'm sure, having a child from 1 year, that's love. Like, that's you get to have that child like your own. Especially if you've opened up yourself to say, this is my own child. So I think that's what I would say. I think it does require, it's not something that cannot be dealt with God's help.
And also I think also just trusting, let's say for example, if he decides to go a certain way, just understand, like, look, why were you doing what you're doing? Maybe just say, look, I think maybe fall on the side of you're doing this thing to honor God, and rest on that situation. Maybe that's what this season is about. Just saying, questioning why you're doing what you're doing, and also understanding that what you did was a good thing in God's eyes, and maybe finding comfort in that, so that even the hurt may actually become lesser than it is, because you are finding comfort in God, who allowed this thing to happen and gave you the means to help in the particular way, and gave you the strength to actually help in that. And maybe you cannot actually have that conversation with him. Maybe God can have that conversation with him in due time.
That's true.
And he will come, and he'll be there. There's always room for forgiveness and repentance. And I think always have that channel if you can't articulate your words.
Yes. Yeah.
So anything you want to add?
No, thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us again for our episode of FWT Reacts.
Yes.
And we're indeed thankful for all the support that we get from you guys, and how you watch our listen to our thoughts on these episodes. And we're really encouraged, like we always say, like, follow, and
subscribe and share.
So until next time, thank you very much, and God bless, and hope we see you again for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.